After he messaged her on Facebook, Heidi quickly fell for Ed. Dating for 4 years, he finally proposed and scheduled a nice dinner to tell their parents. The thing was, Heidi's mom kept staring at Ed like she'd seen him before. Heidi met Ed Savitt while the two of them were studying at university. After dating throughout school, the two lovebirds moved to London together. It didn't take long for Ed to get down on one knee and ask his longtime girlfriend to marry him. Then the two decided it was time to meet each other's parents. Little did they know that things were about to get a bit weird. Stay tuned to see why Heidi's mom acted strange at dinner. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Growing up, Heidi spent a lot of time with her mom, Kay. The two of them were pretty much best friends. So, it was a bittersweet day when Heidi received her acceptance letter from the United Kingdom's University of Newcastle. It was hard to leave her mom behind, but Heidi was excited about moving away to college. In her first year, she stayed in a shared apartment. However, in her second year, Heidi decided it was time to get her own place. She settled on a small studio. Little did she know that moving was about to be the best decision of her life. While she was in her studio, Heidi received a Facebook message from a stranger. His name was Ed Savitt, a psychology and business student. He had just moved into Heidi's old apartment building but needed some help with the washing machine. He found her name on some mail she left behind and decided to see if she could help. She thought that it'd be the last she heard from him. While talking with a stranger over social media wasn't on the top of Heidi's to-do list, she decided to help him out. Plus, he was very good looking. But they did nothing more than figure out the broken washing machine together. It was the last time they spoke until Heidi felt someone staring at her while she was out with friends. One night, Heidi was out at the local bar with some of her friends. She got a strange feeling that someone was watching her from across the way. Following the strange feeling, Heidi looked around until she locked eyes with none other than Ed. After talking at the bar, Ed didn't take long to invite Heidi out to dinner at a pizza restaurant. It was their first official date. Amazingly, there was really something about Ed that Heidi should have picked up on. She wouldn't make the connection until their mother intervened, though. Heidi would later say the two hit it off instantly. They became extremely close and stayed together all through college, a major feat for some people. And while they both had plans for their own futures, that quickly changed. They didn't want to go their separate ways after their graduation ceremony. Off to London. Being together throughout college, Heidi and Ed thought they knew everything about one another. They would soon find out how wrong they were. Even so, they decided to move to London together after graduation, settling down in separate apartments. It didn't take long for Ed to realize he didn't want any other woman in his life. Walking around Derbyshire's Chatsworth house in 2015, Ed got down on one knee and asked Heidi to spend the rest of her life with him. She said yes, but there was one thing left to do before they said, "I do." They had to meet one another's parents, something they hadn't done yet. It was time to schedule a meetup with their parents. Both Ed and Heidi were nervous. While they'd been together for 4 years, their parents hadn't met one another yet. It was a nerve-wracking time, but they set and a date at a time, deciding on one of Heidi's favorite restaurants for everybody to meet. Little did they know that Heidi's mom would act very strange. During dinner, the conversation seemed to flow without any issues. But Heidi knew her mom well and could sense that something was wrong. Her mother was acting weird, and she had no idea why. So Heidi decided to ask her mom to speak in private. Outside, she jumped straight to her main point, asking her mother if she did not like Ed. It was a very forward question, but before Kay could answer, they were interrupted. Ed asked them to come back inside because he wanted to tell everyone something important. Once everyone was back at the table, Ed announced that Heidi had agreed to marry him. Kay was over the moon, but still couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen Ed before. Even though Kay shouldn't shake the nagging feeling that she'd seen and met Ed before, she set her mind to getting ready for her daughter's wedding. Going up into the attic, she planned to make space for any supplies the newly engaged couple would need. That's when she spotted old photo albums sitting in the corner. In the back of her mind, Kay knew that she would eventually have to flip through the albums to curb her curiosity about Ed. She began flipping through the pages. A specific photo showed Heidi with her first boyfriend. Honestly, Kay wasn't sure she would find the picture she was looking for, but she had to look. Then, she landed on a picture and couldn't move. A trip that happened 20 years ago, and she couldn't believe her eyes. In the picture, Heidi was standing side by side with her first ever boyfriend. The young boy looked like Ed. There was no telling if she was correct in her assumption. Rushing over to her house, Heidi was a bit scared to hear what her mom had to say. Kay wasted no time showing her daughter the old photograph when she got inside. Picking up the photo, Heidi said, "Mom, you know who that is." In the photo, she was standing next to a little boy who she met years ago at a children's camp in Bartram. One she knew was actually her fiancé, Ed. In the end, Heidi and Ed decided to use the old photographs of them together as their wedding invitations, showing that they were always destined to be with one another. For Heidi and Ed, it was literally love at first sight. The two met when they were no older than 6 years old. Sadly, they lost touch throughout their childhood, but as fate would have it, they met once again when they were old enough to know what love was. Amazingly, it wasn't just Ed and Heidi who met during that trip in 1997, but both of the families, Ed and Heidi's siblings, all played with one another, and there was photo evidence to prove it. Now, their parents are pretty much the best of friends and are even planning vacations with one another.